This is Mr. Martin. This is the continuation of the video notes for Geometry Advanced, section 12.1. We were just about to get into the three trigonometric ratios. And basically, if there's one thing you want to remember about these three trigonometric ratios is that they're basically just ratios of the sides of the triangles, and mathematicians just decided to give them names. So when we pick two sides of the triangles and decide to make a ratio out of them, again, we're just going to either call it sine or cosine or tangent, depending on which sides of the triangle we're talking about. So the first one is sine. It's spelled S-I-N-E, but we'll probably never write it in its full form again, so we just abbreviate it S-I-N, and make sure you don't say sin. We pronounce it sine even though we've written it as sin, so that's sine. And the ratio of the sides in the right triangle, this is the ratio of the opposite side to the hypotenuse. Okay, so it's the ratio of the opposite side to the hypotenuse, and a lot of times you'll just see me write it as O over H. Alright, so that's the sine, and you're going to want to memorize these three trig ratios, and I'll give you a little trick to hopefully help you memorize those. Next we have the cosine, which we abbreviate COS, but we still say cosine anytime we see that. And this is just the fancy way to say, okay, I want the ratio of the adjacent side of the right triangle to the hypotenuse of the right triangle. And again, I'll abbreviate this a lot of times as A over H, adjacent over hypotenuse. Alright, and the last one, tangent, which we abbreviate TAN. This is the ratio of the opposite side of the triangle to the adjacent side. Alright, or you'll see me write it as O over A. Alright, so the sine is the ratio of the opposite side over the hypotenuse. The cosine is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And the tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So this may seem like a lot to remember, so I'm going to give you a little trick here that a lot of people like to use. We call it SOHCAHTOA. S-O-H. I'll tell you what all these mean in a second. C-A-H and T-O-A. Alright, so this S stands for sine, this C stands for cosine, and this T stands for tangent. Alright, so in order to use this little trick to remember it, you've got to remember the SOHCAHTOA, S-O-H-C-A-H-T-O-A. And then once you have that, the sine is equal to the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. The cosine is equal to the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. And the tangent is equal to the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. Okay, so a lot of students, when they get their paper up at the top, they'll write SOHCAHTOA. So then they know, oh, I'm doing cosine, so I need the adjacent side over the hypotenuse, or I'm doing tangent, so I need the opposite side over the adjacent side. And that's the little trick that they use to help. So let's move on to the first example here. We want to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of angle A. So remember, these three things, we need to find ratios of sides of the triangle. That's all these are. Okay? So if I'm looking at angle A, then I'm going to be standing over here. So my little stick figure guy is over here at angle A. which means that here's my hypotenuse. Clear across the triangle is going to be my opposite side, and then my adjacent side is the other one that I'm standing next to that's not the hypotenuse. That's my adjacent side. Alright, so I've got my SOHCAHTOA, so sine of angle A is going to be the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So the opposite side is 21. The hypotenuse is 29. So the sine ratio for angle A is just 21 over 29. The cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse. So my adjacent side, if I'm standing at angle A, is 20. My hypotenuse is still 29, so the cosine ratio, the ratio of the adjacent side to the hypotenuse, is just 20 over 29. And the tangent is opposite over adjacent. That's my TOA, T-O-A. And the opposite side is 21. And the adjacent side is 20. So here are the three trig ratios, sine, cosine, and tangent, if I'm standing at angle A. Alright, if I'm standing over at angle C, these are going to change a little bit. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to end this video here. So why don't you go ahead and finish parts B and part C, and then you could check those answers in class and ask me any questions that you have. Again, some of the most important stuff that we're going to be doing. I know it's right at the end of the school year here, but make sure that you're working hard and asking questions and making sure you know how to do this as well. And we'll see you in the next video.